to Wholesale Hotline, where we cover everything to do with wholesale real estate. I'm Jamil Damji.
I'm Brent Daniels.
And I am Pace Morby.
And together we cover the most important parts of wholesale real estate.
Lead generation.
Conversion of sellers into contracts.
And dispositions. Guys, remember when you're watching this show, do us a favor and squad up in the comments.
Make sure that you are liking and subscribing to the YouTube channels and in the Facebook group Wholesale Hotline.
Most important, we want to know we're doing a great job for you and helping you build your business. So go give us a review on iTunes and or Spotify.
So squad up and enjoy the show!
Welcome to Wholesale Hotline. We have a special guest tonight.
Come on.
We upgraded our co-host Jamil to Ken McElroy. Ken, your YouTube channel is so phenomenal.
Thank you.
I get people that DM me every single day and they're like, hey, who's your hero? Who's your mentor? Who are you following? Who are you trying to be like? And I'm like, Ken, I just want to be like you, man.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah.
I have not been more inspired in my life, probably in the last 36 months as when I went to your office the other day.
Thanks.
Yeah. Why?
So he's showing me around his office. He's huge in multifamily. He's the guy in multifamily. You guys manage about 6,000 units?
Closer to 9.
Closer to 9,000 units. Okay. And I'm going through his office and he's like, oh yeah. And this is, this lady's awesome. She's got the coolest job in the whole company. I'm like, what is it? He says, the director of philanthropy.
Yeah.
Which means that she gives away money as a full-time living.
Yeah, she's good at it too.
So what is she focusing on giving her money away to? Is it individuals? Yeah. Is it organizations?
Well, I'll just give you a quick how it started. You know, what happens is you first start writing checks, for tax write-offs, and you realize it's not really very fulfilling, and then once you start to get involved in the actual charities, it starts to be a lot more meaningful. So that's what happened. And I got involved with the local autism group. And that really changed my whole perspective. And so then I said, just like we do with real estate, just like we do with money, anything, how do I turn this into an asset? How do I generate money for the charity, for the foundation? So we did that. And then we realized that helped attract employees, which was great. That was a byproduct that we weren't expecting. Then I started saying, okay, how do I ramp this up more? And then it started kind of getting out of hand financially. It was good, so how do you do that? So a couple ideas. Okay, we do 5-6 million in flooring a year. If you want our contract, you need to fund our charity. We'll sign the deal with you.
Wow.
So appliances, so these are things you can do once you start to figure it out. And then of course we also have on our quarterly distributions, we fund from that as well. So, we're talking about millions of bucks a year. And then it's completely employee run. So This was cool. Actually, this is what happened during the pandemic. Whenever, all of a sudden it became like our why, because we didn't lay anybody off, but our employees' families had problems. So like an employee would come to us and say, my husband lost his job. And so we were doing, I think $3,000 checks to our employees. So we did about $300,000 just with our employees in-house. So, so we can, it's discretionary, right? So we can do it to food banks, we can do it to whatever, but it's all completely employee run.
That is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Are you talking about SARC?
Yeah, I'm on the board.
Are you really?
Yeah.
SARC. Well, I spent a lot of time with SARC.
Yeah. It's a great organization.
Yeah. My son is on the spectrum, and we went through all the early interventions, went through all the training there. Incredible organization.
So I'll tell you, that's a crazy story. I'll tell you what happened there. So my friend Neil Balter, who's going to speak at Limitless this year, started California Closets, and he has a son that is autistic. So Neil got involved in SARC because of their son.
Sure.
So we call it,
for people to look it up. What is it? What's it called? What's the acronym?
SARC, SAARC.
Yeah. Yep. Great organization. So Neil's involved trying to help his son.
Yeah.
And Neil gets cancer. Now at this point we have the big walk, we do, there's like 10, 15, 20,000 people that show up for this walk.
Yep.
And he gets cancer. And so he comes to me, meets with me for sushi. He's like, hey, like, I'm not supposed to live another year. Would you take over, be the chairman of this walk? And I'm like, because he's my buddy. I'm like, 100%. So anyway, so then I became the chair for the walk for a couple of years, got on the board, and never looked back.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And he ended up living.
He did. Yeah. Apparently once you have that diagnosis, you can go outside of the normal drugs, and he found one that worked.
Awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Sark, you guys identified this charity, and then you started figuring out that you can recruit employees from this because you think it's because the vision of the company attracts higher level people?
I think so. Yeah. The employee, here's what we found is that employees, they're always looking for a company with a heartbeat, a culture. And so it's a piece. Obviously there's a lot of reasons, but we do find that probably later, when I say later, when you're hitting like 40s, 50s, you're kind of looking for something a little bit different than you are when you're 25. And so we've attracted a lot of top talent because of our core values and our, and our philanthropy. And so we got to hire a director of philanthropy. She was at Arizona State running their charities. And before that, she was at the Apollo Group. So for 10 years and 10 years. So that's been awesome. And she quarterbacks everything. And guess what? To this day, I've never been to a board meeting.
She runs all the board meetings.
I've never been to one meeting. It's all employee run.
That's so special. And then during COVID, you were able to give charity to your own employees. Spouses that lost their jobs during COVID.
Yeah, that was really cool. Plus food banks, and plus, we used a lot of it during the pandemic, but that's what it's for. And then we just created a plan to build it back up. So, it's just so fun.
Phenomenal that somebody who is in real estate got to that level. I think a lot of people that are just saying, I just need to get my first deal to get started. For me, if I knew that what the rainbow looked like at the end of what the pot of gold looked like at the end of the rainbow, I would have something to aspire to. And that's what I loved about going to your office and seeing all the departments, all the people. I mean, you walked me through, interviewed, introduced me to everybody in your office. What's up, live studio? What's up, twins? The twins are on time, right on time. So going all the way back though, I mean, now here you are closer to 9,000 units in multifamily. Mm-hmm. You've done quite a bit. Yeah. I mean, you've done a lot. I mean, you run basically, from my understanding, you're running all of the units between you and Robert Kiyosaki. You help manage even his assets, correct?
Yeah. So what happened was I was already buying projects. I was buying lots of properties, and I was in a group called EO, our Entrepreneurs Organization, years ago. And my buddy knew Robert. And at that point, you're just trying to get in front of anybody to see if they'll invest with you, right? So he helped set up a meeting with Robert. Robert had just launched Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I got a meeting with him at Phoenix Country Club.
Wow!
We sat down, had a cup of coffee.
That's a great club. By the way.
That was it. Yeah, and I met him and Kim, and they had just kind of retired. They had just written the book. It wasn't the big, phenomenal book that it is now, but I read the book. Before I met, that night, because I knew I had a meeting with him next day, and I knew that would be helpful for the meeting. And I liked the book, and I started chatting with him. The next thing you knew, he invited me to one of his seminars. But he was added to our list, as you know, just like anybody else. And then he talks a lot about us, but he along with thousands of others are in many of our deals.
I love it. Okay, so for somebody that just wants to get started, did you get started in single family or multifamily?
Single, yeah. I started on site property management in college, because it was free rent, right? So I was like, this is awesome. I was making.
Where were you? What city?
I was up in Seattle, and I was going to school, and I took I had a 1-bedroom apartment. I was making $600 a month, and finishing up. And I learned on the ops side, the operations side. And along the way, I bought a 2-bedroom, 2-bath with my own cash. And then I bought another one. And then I was out of money. So I was like, okay, I'm going to have to figure out. And meanwhile, I'm managing this. It's only small property, 60 units. And the owner drives up with this incredible Mercedes. And, I grew up in construction and I knew how to fix stuff. And it was just, I was hands-on with everything. I was painting, cleaning units.
You learned that from your dad?
Yeah. My dad was in construction and my mom was a hairdresser and my dad was a contractor. So we just did everything. We never had anybody come to our house. We just did it. So I knew all that. So anyway, I fixed it up and I was like, man, these, people that don't pay rent, I flip those out for people that do. I need to fix this place up. I fixed it up. About 3 months later, he comes in. He's like, nice. Good job. Thank you. And I waited to increase the occupancy, increase the cash flow, all those things. I was sitting there and I'm like, I'm on the wrong side of the desk.
No doubt.
And that was it. I decided to get my real estate license and never looked back. I dabbled in a bunch of smaller units first. And then,
smaller units, meaning duplexes, fourplexes, stuff like that.
Yeah. And then I made the big jump to 182 units.
Damn. So your first jump to 182 units, did you raise capital for that or did you have your own money?
So no, I had to raise capital. So obviously took less of a percentage on the general partner side, raised the money. It's interesting. What got me the deal was that I saw it. It was pretty simple. It was 182 units. The rents on the first floor were the same as the second floor. Now that might not sound a lot, but this was a senior property. And because I had managed so many deals, I knew that, okay, well, why are the upstairs vacant? Well, no seniors want to walk upstairs. So you just increase the downstairs. Plus you do a whole bunch of other things, on the operations side. And I knew exactly how to increase the NOI before we bought it.
What does NOI stand for people that don't know?
Net operating income, which is just expenses, my income minus expenses.
Before any debt payments, right?
Yeah. Of course, that's the other piece, right? The debt has to work for the cash flow. But the important thing I think for people to understand before you buy something is you need to know the exit. The exit for your cash, not necessarily the exit for the property, but the exit for the cash. So I was always solving for the money. So I raised $2 million, put 7 on it of debt. I'm into it about $9 million roughly. And
when you raised the $2 million and you acquired the $7 million of debt from your lender, did that $2 million include the down payment to your lender plus any renovation costs?
That was everything.
So that was all you needed was $2 million to get into this deal.
Yeah, it was $2 million. Now keep in mind that was a long time ago, right? I still own it, by the way.
Awesome.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah. So incredible. That's one. I have a long-term strategy. We find mentors along the way, all of us, right? Well, one of them was a guy by the name of Leonard Litwin, and he owned this building. And you look him up, New York Lenny, they call him. That's what Trump called him, New York Lenny. And he was, at the time, he was on the Forbes list, owned this one asset in Sun City, Arizona. And we basically did the deal over the phone in a handshake.
So you called him yourself?
Yeah. Well, yep.
This is cold. What year was this, Ken?
Jesus, I knew you were going to ask me that. I want to say it was 20 years ago.
20 years ago. Okay, yeah, so this is like 2003, 2004, somewhere around there.
Yeah, it might even have been before that.
Okay, got it. So this is before like skip tracing exists, before basically
everybody's phone number was on the internet.
Yeah.
Right. So do you remember how you looked this guy up?
Yeah, I found out his nephew or his grandson was out here from New York, was renting a property at a property I was managing. I connected with him. He was kind of overseeing this deal. And he was a trust kid and not really running it very well. And so Mr. Litwin started calling me, and so I got involved, and I saw the deal. And he owns over 10,000 units in Manhattan.
Wow.
So he was just fine. And this was one asset. I realized that this was one asset that he built out there because of his grandson.
He was trying to do a favor for his grandson. Like, hey, let me keep you busy.
That's what it looked like. Yeah. So I got all that information, and next thing you knew, I owned it.
And you still own it to this day.
Yeah. I like long-term, I don't even know what it's worth now. Probably 40 million, something.
You bought it for 9. It's now worth 40.
Something like that.
In 20 years.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. I think I've easily refinanced it 3 times.
And so this is the interesting thing about multifamily that people don't quite understand, especially the majority of our audience right now wishes they could get into multifamily at some point, right? But they're primarily single family focused.
Yeah.
And they don't understand exit strategy on multifamily. right? I think they might think, guys, in the side comments, please tell us what you guys think the exit strategies are for multifamily. I think a lot of people think I'm just going to cash flow this for the rest of my life. I'm going to let it pay all the way down, and then I just have free cash flow. That's probably what most people are thinking.
Yeah.
The second thing I believe they think is that you're going to own it for 5 or 6 years and then sell it once the property appreciates and you've raised your rents, and you're going to exit that way. But not a lot of people truly understand that the real game plan, the smart game plan, is pulling out tax-free money every 7 to 10 years.
So, and that lesson came from Mr. Litwin himself, who I bought it from.
No doubt.
Yeah, because he owned 10. He was born in the late 20s, and he was, the time we met, he was in his 80s, and you should listen to people that own 10,000 units in Manhattan that are in their 80s, and that he said, listen, trust me, the inflation's going to push everything up. You're going to, as long as you manage this thing and cash flow it, it's going to be worth a lot more than $9 million. And so, and now it's sentimental. It's like that, like that first car or the shirt or something. I won't sell it, and it's always full because it's in a senior area.
Yeah. Sun City is only growing, which is great. Yeah. More and more people with COPD and breathing issues, more and more people are retiring here still, even to this day. But did you try and negotiate down from the 9 million? And is that why he's like, Ken, believe me, bro, this is going to go. It's going to work out for you.
Yeah. It's funny. No, I don't recall. I wasn't listed, so it wasn't. It was just something that we came up with. He was so big picture at that point, still is. But it was. He just wanted his grandson back to New York, I think.
Really?
Do you think that you had to have bought the duplexes and the fourplexes and some of these smaller units and and been in property management for him to trust that you could get the deal even closed?
No question.
Right.
Yeah. That's a great question. Yeah. I had a track record. His grandson knew me. I knew him very well.
You also knew what you were talking about. I'm sure when you got on the phone with him and you said, look, this is what I'm going to do. He was like, damn. This should be your asset.
Exactly right. Yeah. So it was, I'll never forget. I literally, I tell everybody, this is back when, we had to paper it up, but we cut a deal literally over the phone off of trust. Mm-hmm. I knew him at this point. There were some other things that had gone on at the project that I was trying to unwind for him. And I was, just doing what we would all do. And next thing
trying to bring value.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the offer came, when he said, well, I think we're going to list it. I go, well, I'll buy it, and then we just put the deal together. So we did paper it up, but there was no LOI. There was no back and forth. Right. There was, and I knew the value was sitting there in the rent roll already and on the expense side, because they had done some stuff that, under, prior management that wasn't good.
We talk about recognizing potential, right? When you're getting started in this and you've never talked to a property owner at all, you're not going to recognize the potential that you would recognize after going through and evaluating and looking and being in property management, understanding what could be done with this property. I mean, there's definitely levels to this business. But the more that you're out there, the more that you're taking imperfect action and actually starting this business, the more experiences you're going to get to be able to recognize different potential.
You got it. Yeah. Right? That is actually it. I think most things happen in people's minds, it's what you see that others don't see.
Right.
That's it. Mm-hmm. So whether it's listed or not listed, I find deals all the time that have come across my desk that are listed. And I'm like, how can nobody see this? Right. But thousands of other people are looking at it. They just don't see it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so when you bought the deal, do you remember what the interest rate was on your first loan?
I don't. I think it was up there, like 7, maybe 8. Something.
Okay, so then you refinanced. I know that I'm asking you to go back in the time capsule.
Yeah.
When you refinance, you're obviously gauging what your cash flow will be after your new refinance, and you're pulling out. Do you remember what your refinance was?
Yeah, I want to say that we got it up into the 12 range for value. So, after a couple of years of scrubbing down the expense side, bumping the rents to what they should be, closing the gap on the market rents and some vacancy issues that they had, all of that turned into a few $1 million of value, went back to the bank, I think we put just over a $9 million loan on it.
So you got your investors their money.
Yeah, so we paid off the 7 and we paid off the 2. And then at that point we were, infinite. So
okay, so now you've got this $2 million, and this is what a lot of people don't understand about this as well, depending on who you are.
Yep.
You have this $2 million. Do you pay back your investors, and are they out of the deal, or do you keep your investors in the deal, but now they've got their money back?
So it's a great question. I get asked this a lot. So at that point, the investors are paid off. So, and the debt is paid off. So equity's paid off, debt's paid off. At that point, keep in mind, I've made zero.
Right.
Because I was doing everything, for the future. So, but at that point, now I participated on the cash flow moving forward on everything. So the investors stayed, and then now I'm participating. So on a true deal, you have a GP and an LP. Typically, the LP has 100% of the money. The GP, whatever it is, say it's a 75-25 deal, the GP actually doesn't really make money until the LPs are paid off.
Mm-hmm.
So you pay off the LPs, and now you get that split 75-25. So 100 grand comes out, 25 to me, 75 to them after everybody's paid.
So when you do the refinance, right, the LPs are, before the refinance, the LPs are in at 75%.
Explain what that means.
So
what's an LP?
A limited partner, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what you're doing is Ken goes out, gets a deal under contract for $9 million. He goes and raises $2 million. Raises means he's pulling the money out of somebody else's pocket. That is an investor. They either call them an equity partner or they call them an LP. They call them a whole bunch of things, but LP is the most common thing. They're a limited partner. They don't really have a say in the business.
Limited.
They're very limited, but you're giving them 75% of the deal, even though they only brought 30% of the money.
They're in first position. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So then you as the GP, right, the general partner, you're the one running the deal. You're the one putting it all together. You get the other 25% of the deal, which is great for you because you're in the deal, no money out of pocket.
Correct.
Okay. So now the goal for you, the GP, is to build a track history and to get your LPs their money back.
Right.
Now, are you restructuring the 75-25 split after the refinance?
No, we don't. So
even to this day, you don't.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. So we keep the deal as is.
Damn, I want to be one of your LPs.
And we bless, we say, thank you. You guys got us here. You deserve that deal, whatever it was at the time. And, at the time for me, it was everything because at that point, now I'm getting free cash flow created out of thin air. And, in the IRS rule, it's called the sweat equity, so I guess maybe that's not the IRS definition, but sweat equity basically means, that's the equity you get once you pay everybody back.
Okay. So now that's insane.
And
You've
you
got their
2 years,
their money back.
2 years you didn't get paid.
Oh yeah, no. Well, I was also managing the property, so I got a
Okay.
management fee as I was doing the work, right? But of course, I had overhead.
But that's
around
like
that.
paying the bills and doing all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. But I think that's the way it should be. I think that if you're taking somebody's money, you should be on the backside. And by the way, now of course I have money in every deal. I'm on the LP side too, right? So I invest alongside of all my investors, but there's also the GP side that if you can create that kind of value, if you can generate $3 million in 3 years, let's say, there's no investor that's going to say I don't like that deal because that's what's called a waterfall. So the first thing in the waterfall, when there's a capital event, let's say there's a sale at $9 million, the very first thing that gets paid is the debt. At that time, the debt was lower than 7 because the tenants have been paying it down.
Right.
So not a lot lower, but a little bit. And then you have the 2. So those 2 things get paid. And at that point, what investor is going to say, oh, I don't like that deal? And keep in mind that $2 million, it's tax free. It's a return of capital.
Right.
It's not taxable.
But now they got
their
of
money
an asset,
back.
and
So
they get cash flow without money in the deal.
Yeah. So I give you $2 million after 3 years. You're still an owner, and you're like, go do that again.
Yeah, go do that 100 more times,
Yeah,
man.
right. So that's it.
Let me give you my $2 million back.
That's the model.
So essentially what you're doing is you're buying people's loyalty for future deals.
Yeah, and you're securing it with the actual vision of the deal itself. Let's don't forget, this is not a sales job. This is math. This is what I'm going to do. This is how long it's going to take. It doesn't always work out, but it's pretty damn close. It's very close. It's very calculated, well thought through. It's not, rents are going to go up 5 or 6 or 7%. That's not it. There's $200 of lift in the rent roll today, and there's $200 of higher expenses today. So all I got to do is collapse those two things. It's going to take a year and a half, and that's where the value's created. It's going to jump the NOI, and then you take it back to the bank and get a new appraisal.
With the 9,000 that you currently have in your portfolio, guys, this guy has 9,000 units. 9,000. Okay. Most people could retire with like 15 single family homes. You guys have 9,000 units.
Yeah.
Is the game plan to continue to acquire, because you obviously have a full acquisition team? I've met them. He's a badass.
Yep.
Is the plan to continue to acquire and grow past the 9,000?
Yeah. I think what happens is there's a couple, chapters, I guess. First one is just trying to return the capital, and then get a cash out refi. And then you're trying to get that financial freedom through, passive income. That's number one. Number two is, figuring out how to scale your whole operation, right? And make your management company profitable, because I own the management company too. So, so we have 300 people in that company. So, at that time we didn't, of course, but, so you're figuring out all these side businesses at the same time, right? And then you're stacking on deals, you're trying to buy deals. But also what was cool, after you do the one deal, then all the brokers are like, who's this guy?
Hey,
this guy can perform.
Yeah. He closed this deal, and why wasn't it listed? So anyway, all that stuff. So all of a sudden, all that network opens up, the network that you didn't have before. And then you also start to see the network on the equity side and additional debt, all those kinds of things. And so at some point, you're right. You get to this, you start to have nicer stuff. Then what happened was, let's see, it would have been in my mid 30s. I started trying other stuff.
Like what?
Oh my gosh, and
Yes.
that's what I was like.
shiny
Well,
object syndrome?
yeah, you're like, oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I was like, and I wasn't. Of course, I had all the nice stuff, all that. But then I started getting into self storage, and we started getting into condo conversions. That took me that was like a 3-year process. So. I was like, and so then I just started working a lot more, and I started realizing that what I originally started in was the best thing. That because what would happen on these, we did at least 4,000 units of condo conversions. And by the way, I had the rental, I had a rental company. I started a real estate company for selling the condos. We had we were selling them to investors. I started a management company. So when we sold it, we prepay the management fees for 1 year in escrow. So I funded that. I created a whole management company. I sold that off. So there's all these things that I did. But at the end of all of that, I paid a lot of tax and I didn't own anything.
Wow.
I was like, man, that was a big
so
run.
You just went right back to the basics.
Yeah. And so I went right back, and that was probably 5, 6, somewhere in there, 7. And I was like, okay, that was fun. And this is all over. This was up in Oregon and Washington. It was in Nevada and Arizona. And it was fun. I mean, we had a lot of stuff going on, and we were selling 50, 100, a week, and depending on where we were. And it was a lot of fun. And not every week was like that, but it was we were pumping. But
why wouldn't you just keep it going then?
Well, because the market changed, and remember Countrywide?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that was we had Ohio Savings, and we had all these people on the takeout side. So anyway, I'll never forget when that stopped. Thank God it stopped kind of later, because I had already had most of our senior and that kind of stuff paid off. And, we had I remember one project in Vegas, I had like 60 units left free and clear or something like that. And they were all like 250 maybe. So I was like, I don't know, 12 to 14 million in profit. When it stopped, man. I think we got out of there for $6 or $7 million.
Oh my word. We took this is back in 2008.
Yeah.
So the market crashed. You guys
That
had $12
quick.
million in paid off property. Market crashes. It goes down to like $5-6 million.
Something
bucks.
like
You just
that.
get
We're just
out.
getting out, right? Close out the HOA, and we had to set up all the HOA and CC&Rs. And
Okay,
bylaws.
so you've got a market correction. You've been through a couple of market corrections actually.
Yeah.
What do you feel? And I know we just went to Rebel Capitalist out in Florida, which George Gammon. Holy shit. If you guys do not follow George Gammon and Ken McElroy, watch these guys. Holy shit. I watch you in the shower, bro.
He does.
I do. Even today, this is what you said. You said, do not buy real estate. We are in the second inning of a 9-inning baseball game. Do not buy and own real estate right now.
Yeah, I believe that.
Okay. He's got his wife, Daniil, is out there going and trying to buy properties, and he's just kind of
this morning,
he's like, do not buy property right now.
I know.
What have you learned and gleaned from all these economists over the last, let's say, 3 or 4 months? What do you think our economy is going to do over the next 9 months?
Gosh, I wish I knew. I have been trying to figure that out.
What's your gut tell you?
I've flown all over the place trying to figure this out. I've listened to people. I met with them face to face. Because I want to know too. Let's just be clear. I want rates to be low, and I want inflation to be low, and I want people to be making a lot of money. That's actually what I want. That's not, I believe, where we're headed. So
where do you think we're headed?
Well, I think there's a bunch of things all happening at the same time. The first thing is, I don't think that the Fed is going to be able to tame inflation like a lot of people think. So that's number one. And a lot
even
of people
though inflation right now has come down from like 11% down to 6.5%.
Yeah. And here's why. Because Joseph Wang, who used to be the head of the Open Markets Committee for the Fed, he was the one buying bonds, worked in New York at the Fed, said, that first tranche, he's like, he goes, that could happen pretty quickly. 10, let's don't forget they raised rates 10 times. So he goes, that next piece, that's the hardest piece. So,
you're saying going from 11%, 12% inflation, which we were at last year, raising rates 10 times, that first chunk of whittling it down to 6%.
That certainly worked.
That worked. But what he's saying is that next tranche of trying to get it down to 3% is like twice as hard.
That's what he said. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he didn't say twice, but he did say it's a lot harder. So if you think about it, if you take a look at the CPI,
which is
the Consumer Price Index, the 44% of it is housing. Period. Now that's single family and multifamily. A big part of it is energy. Some of it's wages. So I think the Fed has a couple. They have a couple things that they're going to fight with. One is when rates go from 3 to 6. Let's just say, what you have is you've slowed down purchasing of houses. You've slowed down a lot of things, purchasing of anything that you're buying on credit. That's good, and that's what they're trying to do. That's actually what they were trying to do. The other side of that is that now the banks, are paying 4 or 5% on their deposits when their loans are at 3%.
Right.
So the banks are in trouble.
So you're looking at like small regional banks are going to be in trouble.
I believe they are, and I believe that anything also that's on a commercial side. So we'll talk about office buildings or retail.
I feel like, and I think where we're heading in this conversation is commercial office space is going to get smacked in the face.
Yeah.
Big time.
There was
multifamily, the debt situation that's coming up as well. I think we got to talk about that as well.
Potentially. Yeah, for sure. We'll go there. But if you take a look at, there was a sale in San Francisco, right downtown, like State Street, like Main and Main. In 2020, this office building was valued at $250 million. It just traded at 70.
Holy!
Last week,
because of distress.
Yep, because of vacancy. So you take a look. I don't know the real number, but I've heard somewhere between 30 to 35% vacancy in San Francisco alone. And so there's no way you can service debt. First of all, the equity's gone. Whoever it is, doesn't really matter if it's from. Probably not a bunch of small guys investing in those kinds of things. It's probably pension funds, insurance companies, all the big Wall Street money.
They just lost all the money. It's gone.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of defaults. PIMCO, BlackRock, they're defaulting. Even Musk told the landlord, screw you. Mm-hmm. He's like, I'm not paying you, because he's renegotiating his leases and he's got 80% less employees. So one landlord's already lost his building, and for Twitter. So these little stories are all over. and they're not just in San Francisco. You know, they're in New York, they're in Boston, they're in Chicago, they're in Seattle, they're in Portland. You know, they're in LA, and they're all over the place. And there's a lot of people that moved out because of COVID and pandemic, and their employees don't want to go back, and there's all this stuff going on. So that's why I think office buildings are in trouble, because.
Do you feel like office buildings, out of all the sectors of real estate, is the biggest falling knife right now?
Yeah, I do. I think it's the first one, and then I think there'll be others. But it's going to be interesting. There's 1.4 trillion in commercial debt. Think about that. That's a lot. Coming due by the end of 2024.
I also heard you say this morning while I was in the shower listening to you that consumers have $1 trillion in credit card debt.
Yeah, they just passed that. And
never in history before have we ever hit $1 trillion in credit card debt. We just hit it.
It's crazy.
Well, does it ever go down
I don't think it ever goes down
in the history of credit?
We have the lowest amount of savings in people's bank accounts, and the highest amount of credit that we've ever seen.
You look at their, if you just Google FRED St. Louis, Fred, you know, and look at personal savings, just type that in, you'll see it's a spike straight down. And then you look at
so essentially that means everybody's living on credit.
Everybody's living on credit. Credit card debt's really high.
I'm going to restaurants, Ken. I'm going all over the place. I'm like, man, people are spending money.
They are.
Are they spending money from refinances that they did in like 2021? Where the hell is this money coming from?
I watched this comedian, and he's like, every time I leave my house is $100.
I know.
Every time I leave my house, I go get lunch, $100. Go fill up my car, $100.
I got a smoothie today. It was $17. I was like, what the freak is going on?
I know.
$17. That was like a date with a girl when I was 16 years old, dude. I was like, I got to get $20 from my parents so I can go on a date.
Yeah.
So I know. So the government's watching all this. And if you're on a fixed income, you know, it's a problem. Now, you know, I'm talking about like seniors, and I'm talking about people that are retired and have some kind of pensions, and they have a fixed number. They're in big trouble. You know, and we have a lot of tenants like that. You know, we have 55-year-old properties, you know, 55 and older, including the one I bought, but we have 4 others. And, you know, these people they get $1,200 a month, let's say, or $1,500 a month or something. And I know, you know, Social Security and all that stuff's being adjusted, but sometimes that money's not. And, you know, it's not good. So I think to your, you know, to the original question, you have to take care of those folks, and it has to be through money. Or you know, or we need to reduce inflation.
Are you saying taking care of them in terms of UBI, like a universal basic income?
Potentially, yeah, or stimmy money, or whatever you want to call it.
So if you do stimmy money, inflation's going to kill us.
Correct, right? And if you lower interest rates, inflation will kill us. So or not inflation, but appreciation, and it's inflationary. So we're between a rock and a hard place. Yeah, that's where the Fed is.
Or at least the Fed is.
The other thing is, just to make it worse, if it can be, wages, you know, unemployment's at all-time lows are 3.4%. When you have that low of unemployment, which, you know, the Biden administration is all proud of, it's inflationary. That makes
it's because wage growth.
Yeah, wage growth is inflationary. So it's the other side of it.
So to get quality people nowadays, you've got to basically, I mean, I'm in bidding wars on a graphic designer right now.
Yep.
With another company. And they keep going back and forth. They're like, hey, I want to work for you guys, but this other company wants to pay me $100 an hour. It's like, I can't pay you $800 an hour to be on salary.
Just give them a subject to deal.
Well, yeah. I mean, that wouldn't make that much money for them.
No, I know. But you know, I'm telling you. So you know what? Stagflation. Stagflation means stagnant. You know, so stagflation is high inflation and high unemployment, and a lot of people are saying that's where we're going to head, because the Fed actually has to increase the unemployment rate in order to lower inflation. Is that odd?
Interesting. They have to raise the unemployment, so people have to lose their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that means.
They've been talking about it.
Yeah,
big time.
Yeah, I know it sounds bizarre. Just look on the Fed's website. You'll see they're one of their jobs is to maintain a balanced unemployment rate, balanced economy, and it's not balanced in their mind right now at 3.4%.
I wonder I'm not smart enough to know this answer. Do you know how they actually structure a 3 million person layoff?
I think that I don't know, man. I tell you, one of the things is let inflation pass through to businesses. You know, businesses had one of the highest bankruptcy months in April last month.
I heard that this morning, also standing in the shower listening to you this morning.
So you know, it's trickling through. Those supply chain issues, you know, that $17 smoothie, that stuff is starting to hit the
we're seeing. I mean, you saw that the whole thing with eggs in the news and all that kind of stuff. Eggs are like $12 a dozen now. They used to be $4 a dozen or whatever.
Yeah, and this is if you look at what I call lag, which is like when you drop a pebble in a pond and you see the rings. There's lag. There's real lag that happens, and when an interest rate is increased, it takes a while. Mm-hmm. It takes a while for people to stop buying cars. It takes a while for them to stop buying real estate. It takes a while for the mortgage companies to close down and lay off people. There's lag with all of it. Why are you getting calls from your contractors now? And you know what I mean. You're rehabbing, your remodel people. This is why.
I had a contractor 6 years ago. He left the crew. We have 18 crews. You have way more than I do. But I had a foreman. He's like, I got to go out on my own, man. There's too much work. I got to go. I got to make hay while the sun is shining.
Yep.
Calls me up 2 weeks ago and he goes, hey, man, got anything for me?
Yeah, that's why. Like it's starting to trickle out. We
bought a subto deal yesterday from a let go of loan officer. He bought a property last year. They were going on vacation. They renovated the whole house. They're spending every penny because when it's coming in, you don't think it's ever going to stop.
Right. He's
a loan officer. So he said, I started seeing layoffs, but I was a top performer. So I thought there's no way they're going to let me go. And then he's like, I came into the office one day and it took like 6 months from the first layoff to now where they're at now. And he says, I walked in, there was nothing for me to do.
Yeah.
No phone call. It went from ring, 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 ring. I had to step outside to take personal phone calls because there's so many people having conversations inside the office to now it's like a ghost land. I lost my job. I can't afford my house payment. Here's my 2.9% rate. Just take over my house.
Yep. Yeah. And that's horrible.
It's horrible, but that shows the domino effect or that pebble effect that what you're talking about. How do you think that will affect your business? Because you're where I want to be.
Yeah. So I'm really concerned about my residents. So I'll be honest, I am. We started a resident relief fund internally, so we're also taking a piece of that and putting it into a resident relief fund, and then our residents can actually apply to it as relief. I don't want to have to evict anybody. We know their credit, we know who they are, we know their.
You see, what's going to happen is that if the Fed says, hey guys, we got to let go of 3 million people, that's going to affect you. You've got nearly 9,000 units.
Of course.
So you're going to have a portion of your tenants go, I can't afford this. But where the hell else am I going to go? Because if I'm in an apartment, there's nowhere else that's less expensive.
Yeah. So that's where the stimmy money comes back, or the UBI, or, I don't know if this is some big master plan or not, but it's definitely, when multifamily and single family are so very different. Everybody groups it into one category, but they could not be more different. The truth is, if you're in a multifamily asset, you want to buy a house, period. You want to be out. You don't want to rent.
Mm-hmm. You're talking about the residents at your multifamily properties don't want to rent from you. They want to get out. Their ultimate goal is to get out.
Most people want to get a down payment and move out, right? And build that equity and pay down their loans and all that kind of stuff. I believe that. And I mean, I'm just going over history. Anytime the economy is rolling like this and rates are low, the home builders are all over us. They're flyering our properties. Why rent? Why rent when you can own? So it's just the way it is. And so the point of that is, so when houses are so high and interest rates are so high, mortgage payments are high. And so all of a sudden it just pushes people into rentals. So what's happening is, the single family market is, I don't actually think single family is going to crash. I just think it's unaffordable for a lot of people right now, and it's just keeping them in their rentals. So what's going to happen is that these people that would normally, the market, when it's stable, they're supposed to be doing both. You're supposed to have a solid, let's say 90, 95% occupancy, and homes are supposed to be selling at a pretty good pace. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not happening right now. So there's not a lot of houses selling. People are defaulting into rentals, which is, in a good way, if you're a landlord, it's a good spot to be in, because these people have to rent, and therefore it puts a lot of pressure on them, and rents go up, and vacancy goes down, and all those kinds of things. So I think we're heading into, under Biden, we're going to go into this, what I call a renter nation, which is, if you think about it, in Europe or Asia, or everybody rents. Right, to own a home in a lot of.
So, do you think that that's a natural historic curve that every government has to go through?
It's possible. I'm looking at it because it's interesting when when economy gets so old. like I'm talking about like Europe, let's say, you go to Rome or Italy, everybody rents, right? It's very rare. It's like the old school families have, own stuff, and you can buy stuff. Don't get me wrong.
What is your business doing? Are you guys still looking at deals to acquire?
Of course. Yeah.
It's still not that you guys aren't buying. It's that you guys just change your numbers.
Cash flow. Yeah, we always buy with cash flow. So we underwrote 14 deals last week, our acquisitions and our analysts. And, we were anywhere from 3 to 6 million off of what the seller wanted on everyone. So
do you feel like that's also a ripple that happens as well, as that it takes a while for the sellers to catch up with what's going on?
Yeah. So a seller on the multifamily side, think about why, if something was, let's say, 100 million a year ago, it's 75 today.
No shit.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
So now is the time for you guys to gobble up deals.
On multifamily.
Maybe
25.
So
maybe
even with more renters coming into the market.
Yeah, I'll tell you. And I'll tell you why. Here's why. So you guys know what a cap rate is. A cap rate is so cap rates went from 4 to 5. That's 20%. Period. So what was once 100 is now 80, just by seeing cap rates go up 1 point. So you take 4% into your NOI, it's 100. You take 5% into your NOI, it's 80. Mm-hmm. It's just that simple. It's just pure math. So if rates go down and cap rates go down, then of course you go back up. Right. But that's if. So
is the challenge with what you're. You guys aren't going and buying properties cash, no matter how big you guys are. You guys are going out and acquiring loans.
Yep.
And you're raising capital.
Yeah.
And so if you're acquiring and getting loans, the challenge with multifamily, this is what a lot of people don't understand about multifamily, is that you guys have very different debt structures than single family.
Yes.
Right? Like a single family investor is going out and getting fixed 30-year terms, typically 95% of the time. Okay. It's fixed 30-year terms. With multifamily, you guys are typically getting bridge financing of 5 to 7 years, somewhere around there.
So yeah, and I'll just add one more piece. So with a single family, they look at your FICO score. With multifamily, they look at your NOI. I think that's important to understand. So the bank's looking at the asset to pay back their debt in a big commercial deal. On a single family, they're looking at you. Mm-hmm. And they're saying, can you pay it back? What's your...
It's the horse versus the jockey type of thing.
100%.
So in single family, it's the jockey, and multifamily, it's the horse.
You got it. So that's really important to know. And then from there, you decide, what kind of debt do I want? Do I want short-term bridge? Do I want long-term? And that's really a choice. You have a lot of options to be able to decide what kind you want.
So I feel like everything that I'm hearing, I'm in multifamily. Most of my multifamily has been purchased with seller finance.
Yeah.
And I know you guys do the seller finance as well. Outside of seller finance, what I'm seeing in the multifamily space is that we're going to have a lot of defaults in the multifamily space. But I could be wrong. You're way more intelligent than me. What do you see coming up in the multifamily space for syndicators that were raising money 3, 4, and 5 years ago that now their debts are coming due?
So so let's go back to that cap rate discussion. So let's just say cap rates went from 4 to 5, which they did. So if you bought something, 3 years ago, it's 100, and you have to refinance your debt today, it's 80, which is your debt.
You got to bring $20 million to the table, basically.
Right. So
or you have to go and renegotiate your debt, which is probably not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. So, what they do is they'll put an appraisal back on that thing, and they'll say, okay, it's worth 80 and you bought it for 100. So really what that means is that the investor equity is gone.
So do you then tell your investors, hey guys, we're going to hold on to this thing and keep you in the deal, and we're going to refinance and get longer term debt, and hopefully we can get you guys paid back in 5 to 10 years? So
there's a couple strategies there. One is, of course, let's say it's worth 80. Well, you're going to get a loan for 55?
Right.
So now it would be what we call a cash in refinance. So the question is do you put
a cash in refinance, the multifamily nightmare that keeps them up at night?
So yeah, so do you put 25 million down to save 20?
How do you raise it?
Bingo.
Damn. So, all right. So let's say that I'm out here and I'm a wholesaler.
Yep.
Okay. And I'm looking for opportunity that I can assign to a multifamily buyer. Okay. Last year I paid, somebody brought a somebody brought a multifamily deal to me, and a wholesaler, and I paid them a $210,000 assignment fee. I love paying wholesalers deals.
Of course.
Okay. So let's say that I want to bring Ken McElroy a deal on somebody's multifamily that's going to default. Is there a place that I can find where people's debt is going to default in the multifamily space? Is it Black Knight?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. There's all kinds. Trips, TRIPPS is a great website for you to go look at. There's a lot of people following this, a lot, not just in multifamily, but retail, industrial, office, you name it. So, the one issue with the commercial side of the business is are cap rates. Mm-hmm. The cool thing that could happen is if the Fed lowers rates this year, like some people are saying it's going to happen, cap rates could go back down again. Mm-hmm. So you can actually get that value back.
Right.
And then of course you can actually pay a little bit more for the asset again, because at the end of the day, you're only going to pay what they think cash flow, and when the cost of debt is higher, you can't pay that much. So that's one saving grace. But there are plenty of websites tracking this stuff. So and so the bridge debt, variable debt, whatever you want to call it, anything that's maturing, let's say,
I could find debts on the Trips website that shows people that have maturing debt on there.
Yeah. I mean, it's all publicly recorded, so when these loans are coming due. Now there are extensions and things like that, mm-hmm. and so, but the other issue we haven't really talked about are what we'll call rate caps. A rate cap.
This is killing a lot of people. People are calling me about this, right, and asking me to help them out and bring money to the table. I'm like, no.
So rate caps are simply an insurance policy against raising rates. That's all. Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people were not getting these insurance policies when they were available because they didn't think interest rates were going to go up.
Yeah. So we buy rate caps on every deal, regardless.
Because you're seasoned.
At the time, it was $25,000, I think.
Tell people what
said
this
it
is.
Like 4 times. It's math.
It's literally just capping a rate. So you're
basically saying, I'm buying this multifamily deal at $100 million. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm going to buy $25,000 insurance that says if the rate goes up, there's a ceiling that my rate can't go past because I bought insurance. Yeah.
So let's say you're at 3% and you're making that deal. And so you buy at the time, I think the rate cap was about $25,000. You get maybe 2 points. So, so
it goes from 3 to 5.
3 to 5. So it's still not good, right? So
I mean, that could still kill all the cash flow on a deal, right?
It could, yes. So that's part of what you're looking at, the rate cap and how much it is compared to how much the cap is. And so, but there's a lot of people that didn't buy them. So that's number one. So what that means is, of course, all the cash flow's gone. Plus, they're burning through the capital. Well, maybe, but any cash that they have, any kind of reserves that they have,
they're chewing through it.
Yeah, they're chewing through it. Yeah, so that's what's hitting right now.
How long does that insurance go? Is it 5 years?
That's a good question. There's 2 and 3 year rate caps, and now, of course, the rate caps are a lot more. So
I bet.
Yeah.
So the people that bought the rate caps, let's say 2 years ago, 3 years ago, now that debt is coming due, or not the debt's coming due, but the rates are going up.
Yep.
And they bought the rate cap. They're sitting here praying.
Yeah.
They're praying that in 24 months or less,
mm-hmm.
the rates go back down.
100%.
Otherwise, they're toast.
Correct. And meanwhile, they're burning cash right now.
Is anybody currently? What's your question? What do you got?
What happened if the insurance company went bankrupt? Investors, right?
So the question in the audience, by the way, is what happens if the insurance company goes bankrupt?
I have no idea. That's a good question, though.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
They get bailed out.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
The government bails out.
Yeah. Silicon Valley Bank, be another one of those. Probably.
Ken, in single family, I don't know anybody that has reached billionaire status. Me personally, I've met a few people that are in multifamily that have reached billionaire status. If somebody's aspiring to say, one day I want to be a billionaire, is there a certain amount of units that they have to aspire to have under management to get to that point?
Well, I think it's going to be a lot easier now with this new administration and inflation. I think you
just hold the property long enough.
Just
you'll
hold
become
it a while. It'll be fine. I think it's just math. So if you're buying something that's $200,000 or $300,000 a unit today, and you put that deal together, it's cash flowing. It's highly probable at 5% inflation. That
in 20 years it's doubled.
Yeah.
Okay, so essentially,
look at the 20 years ago.
Yeah, look at for $9 million,
and now it's worth 40.
Now it's 40.
Probably
it's more
40.
than it's quadrupled.
Probably easy. Yeah.
Hot damn.
Yeah.
Is there better times? Like if you're looking at this thing, I saw so many of my friends like keep cash to the side. They didn't get over their skis in 2008 and 9. And then 2010, 11, 12 came. They bought up all these properties and now they're worth 4 or 5 times what they bought it for. So I'm sitting there like, maybe this is a great thing. Maybe if everything crashes down, not crazy, you know what I mean, but it crashes down a little bit, it's going to be a great opportunity to get those up.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah. I'm super optimistic of what's happening. It's just
for people to understand real estate and how money works. This is one of the best things that could happen.
Yeah. I'll tell you when it's hard, when everybody's buying it.
Right.
So,
because you're competing.
Which has been the last 10 years, it feels like.
The last 10 years have been hard. Yeah. So, and then the prior 10, that's really when we made most of our best deals.
Right.
It was very common for us to be bidding on 200-300 unit projects. There'd be 5-6 bidders, Well, you got to remember, like after a crash, like 08, 9, 10, remember what's going on with the financial markets. Like the banks are taking water in the boat and, they've got all this toxic debt and they're afraid to lend any money and all that. Right. So what I did was I'm like, okay, so, how about out of the country? And, I started looking at Asia, Europe, Mexico, Canada. And I realized at the time our dollar was crashing and the Canadian dollar was getting strong. So, so it was like, oh, this nice little currency arbitrage. So I went up to Canada and we put together some funds up there with their RSP money, which is our 401k. And we started raising a bunch of money in Canada, and we started buying properties in Texas because, from a Canadian standpoint.
So you were raising Canadian money to invest into Texas because the capital that you were pulling was a much stronger capital.
Also, think about it: when your dollar gets stronger and you're in another country, you're like, man, the U.S. is on sale. Like it's crashing, and our dollar's really strong. So yeah.
Did you guys make out like a
bandit?
That
was awesome. Yeah. Yeah. We still own those.
Really?
Oh yeah, the Canadian. Those folks are. They always say A.
When you and I were hanging out at your office, we talked about the assets that you sold.
Yeah.
Do you regret selling those assets?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's funny. Well, so what happens when we bought way more than 9,000 units. And what happens though when you're acquiring, you think you make all the right good decisions. Great location, great this, great that, and you have all these people giving you all this great information. Well, it doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes it's just the wrong corner or wrong side of the street or whatever it might be, And so there were several we bought from banks. I bought some from Silvergate Bank, actually one of the banks that went down. Some from La Jolla Bank. So during a banking crisis, they're a great place to get real estate.
So you're going directly to the bank that probably foreclosed on an operator. Is that
100%?
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a great way to find assets, and I think you're going to start to see some of that next. And the problem is you might be catching a falling knife too, right? Mm-hmm. So you don't know, is it at the bottom? So I remember one deal.
So what you're saying is the operator defaulted on the loan, the bank took it over, and there might be a problem with the property
that still might not be worth
of.
it. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Because the bank, you think about it, if you're the bank, I bought. There was one property in Arlington, Texas. I remember the bank came to us. I can't remember the exact number, but they were going to give us the property, give it to us. Mm-hmm. Literally, it's like, hey, would you take this for the loan?
These are good problems, right?
Well, let me tell you the rest of the story.
Yeah.
So. We dig in. I'm like, okay, obviously this is awesome.
Yeah.
And we had a relationship with the bank already. And I'm like, it needs about $2 million worth of work. This is there's negative carry, and there's, the place is cannibalized, and there's a bunch of work on the roof and paint and all that kind of stuff. So it needs about $2 million. So let's just say it was 10 million. They were going to give us an asset.
They were going to give you a $10 million asset.
It was something like
with no
that.
debt. Just take this shit off our.
Well,
take
it was their debt.
Yeah.
So they were trying to take their 10 million off of their balance sheet and hand
so
it
they're
to
going
me.
to sell it to you subject to, basically.
Yes. And I said, well, I need another $2 million, and but after I took it all, you got to take it again. Just go back to
So
math.
you were basically saying, give me the property subject to. I'll take over your existing debt.
Yep.
But you need to pay me $2 million to do so.
They were going to loan us another $2 million.
Got it. So you would have like basically a second lien position for the $2 million.
The good part is the bank was the equity, right, and the debt, right. So we take that asset over. But once I put the math on it, literally the what are the rents plus the expenses? What's the NOI plus the cap rate? It wasn't worth 12. So now imagine, so the bank's like, okay, I hope he does this deal because I'm taking on 10 million of debt and I get another $2 million loan. And, most people would take that deal. Today, it looks pretty obvious you'd want to take it. But back then, why would you do all that only to have something that wasn't worth? Now, that's given the cap rates at the time, given the interest rates at the time, given the rents and the expenses at the time. So we passed. Now, not without first saying you need to write down your debt to 7 or 8 to make that deal work. We need to buy it for, I want to say, $9 or $10 million.
You want to be all in at $9 or $10 million.
Yeah, because again, we're we were okay with doing all the work. We were okay with fixing it. And no problem. I had the team and everything. I was confident I could do all that. But at the end of the day, what's it going to be worth when it's fixed? Yeah. And it wasn't worth that 12 million.
So did you ever track that asset to see what happened?
No, somebody asked me that. I was like, I'm never going to look at that because I kicked myself in the ass. I was like, oh, geez, I wish I would have bought that.
It's worth $30 million.
Yeah, it's worth $30 million.
I know, probably.
Yeah, but the challenge is there's the velocity of capital, right? So if you've got a velocity of your team, if you're investing your team and your resources into that asset, that you're going to have to wait for a long time for it to hockey stick.
Yeah.
You could have put it somewhere else.
And don't forget, my whole strategy has been the same each time. If I'm going to get that, it has to be worth more and has to cash flow. So I never take anything that's going to be negative equity or cash call, right? I didn't want that. So I was like, and the same thing with our investors. If we're going to take some money and invest it, it better cash flow. And there has to be what I call forced equity, period. There has to be. You're
going to renovate the property and now you've created appreciation.
Yeah, because what I want is I want to pay back that $2 million that I would have gladly done it if the thing was worth 15, but it wasn't. And so, but at the time, it sounds crazy, but at the time, we're looking at all kinds of this stuff, right? We're looking at bank assets, and there's a bunch of them. And so you're saying, and the banks are holding their positions because they have the debt on their balance sheet, and the banks aren't supposed to own real estate. They're not supposed to take loans back, and when they do, they have a negative.
That's
rating.
An interesting thing coming from somebody that's so much more intelligent than most people in real estate is that you understand the position of banks. That's not their job. They don't want these. They don't want these loans on their balance.
It hurts them. Yeah, they get. They're rated.
And how?
Well, they're rated, and again, like the banks are in the market to make money on their loans, and when they take them back, then they start to be looked at, right, negatively, right, just like we would, as it's a business.
By the way, people are loving this.
Oh,
this is the first time. This is the first Wholesale Hotline in how many episodes have we done?
171.
So we've done 171 in a row. We've never missed an episode, so over 3 years.
Nice, congrats. Okay?
And this is the first time we have gone an hour without asking a question from the audience. Because again, you're one of my heroes. I love being around you.
No, we're being selfish.
Being very selfish.
I love it.
Like I wish I could take things out of your brain in a microchip and just freaking Matrix, like be Keanu Reeves and just be like, I know Kung Fu now. I know what Ken McElroy knows.
Yeah.
Do you only buy in certain areas?
Another good question. So I think it's really important that people understand that real estate only exists if people are there, period. So a lot of times people go buy stuff. They're like, oh, real estate doesn't work. Well, knucklehead. That's because nobody wants to be there.
Yeah.
So you have to buy it. And, so we strongly look at migration patterns and employment patterns and, school districts and things that people care about.
Yep.
And you just gotta be in the, and don't be a pioneer,
Mm-hmm.
but
what positions do you have in your company that you never thought you'd have besides the director of philanthropy?
Everybody but me. So.
Especially when you're a maintenance guy on that first 60 unit. You're like, this is what I'm going to do for a living.
Oh my gosh. Listen, I was like, I mean, I was over my skis on everything. I didn't know how to hire a CFO. I didn't know how to hire a CEO. I didn't know how to.
When you hired your first CFO, because we hired our first CFO a year ago. We just hired our 5th COO.
Yeah.
It's daunting.
CIO. We have a CIO. We have a CMO.
Did you get a CIO from some really badass place?
I've never even had a C on my card.
Owner.
Yeah. Our CMO. We hired our CMO from actually Tony Robbins. She was there 10 years.
Awesome.
Yeah. And she's killing it. It's the
revamping everything, saying, hey, you're missing the boat.
Oh,
on these 85
she came
things.
in and, they just, somebody at that level, they just see things differently. They come in and.
Do you think there's a mindset for people that are hiring is that they feel like they have to know as much as the person they're hiring when you first start? Your mindset is not what your current mindset is, which is I need to find somebody that's way more intelligent. That's true.
I think that starts with everybody. I'm a believer that the business should support my lifestyle and I shouldn't have to work in it.
Mm-hmm.
Brent Daniels. This is
I really believe
this is what Brent talks about.
Yeah, I'm serious. Like,
what does your schedule look like?
I like it.
Oh, dude, you don't want to hear this.
I do.
This dude's schedule is so good, dude.
No, I love this. This is important for people to hear.
Let me see if I remember this.
Okay.
You work Monday and Tuesday, and that's it.
Pretty much. Yep.
And then what do you do the rest of your time? We got 168 hours.
Coeur d'Alene. He flies around,
yeah.
traveling. He's got a new Airstream van that you guys just bought.
Oh yeah, I have to learn how to drive it, but yeah, I just got that. So yeah, you can spend your day managing. There's never ending things to do, but we've figured out a system to where I run. My partner and I, Ross, we run. The whole company on 90 minutes a week on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
So I have an investment committee call for an hour.
Hold on. Say that one more time.
90 minutes.
A week.
Yeah.
One meeting that you and your partner Ross have. Yeah. Who is in that meeting?
All the C's.
All the C-suite.
All
this is gangster.
Yeah.
I know it seems obvious for you, but when you're brand new.
I'll walk you through everything. So here's what we do. So each person has a department. I'll just pick on our CMO. Our CMO has a 1-year, 3-year, and a 5-year plan that we put together. And each one of those is broken up into 90-day chunks. So she has a 90-day chunk of goals. So I only want 1 to 3 goals a quarter. That's it. So that's all I track. Are you on track or off track? That's it. So you do that for every single thing, for our construction, for our CIO, for whatever we're doing. You just break it all down into those chunks, and so the only thing that you're managing are those. And of course, those are often I do have meetings on those on our quarterly goals for each department. I'm involved, right? Because I want to make sure that they're the ones that I want and they're wanting everybody's.
What are the questions you're asking, Ken?
Oh, so many. Well, most of the time, most of the time when people are setting goals, they set easy ones a lot of times.
Mm-hmm. So you've got to push them.
Or they're big and aspirational. They're too big. Mm-hmm. So that's part of the processing of, like I'll give you an example. When our CMO started, one of the goals was to redo 30 websites in 90 days.
That seems like
a big task.
That's what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
But she did it. Yeah. And then the next goal is, okay, so how do we drive traffic to those, you know what I mean? So you just chunk it, because it can be super overwhelming. And we have the same stuff for, our assets and our property management. And then I
these departments also independently running, hiring people, interviewing people without your involvement?
100%. Yeah. Because that's all part of the goal. So like we would identify something, like for example, okay, we don't know anything about Google. Just as an example, that might come up. Okay. So, do we need that position full time? Can we contract it? Blah, 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 whatever. And so we ended up deciding that we wanted somebody in house. So that was one of the goals for the quarter. So we hired, I think Ryan, a year ago. So now he comes in and fills that slot. So, those are the kinds of things that come up. So we go through HR, we go through accounting, the asset management, the property management, the marketing, the whole company. And so all those people, and of course we have 6 construction projects going as well. So we have, $300 million in construction. And so, we have the head of construction on there. So, and everybody has their own battles, right? But, just chunk it down to and let them do their jobs, and then just have one or two or three things. That's it.
Okay. So you've got your meeting, 90 minutes. Everybody comes in, they go through their goals. Is this a physical meeting or is this all virtual?
It's a Zoom.
Okay, it's a Zoom. Okay. Are you in the office with Ross?
Ross is, no. I haven't. Yeah, Ross and I see each other a fair amount, but he's in Tucson. I'm in Scottsdale.
Okay, I was just gonna say, why would anybody want to live in Tucson? But that's another conversation.
That's a whole different.
That's a whole nother thing. Tucson's pretty great, but okay. So you've got this meeting. Is this intriguing to you or not?
I love it.
This is like
this is
you. No joke.
Okay,
for guys like us, we have about 700 employees between multiple businesses. And one of the things that we're struggling with right now is our C-suite. How do we get our C-suite upgraded?
Yeah.
And a lot of it is us bottlenecking it ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? Going from the solopreneur to the now entrepreneur.
It's a big thing. It's how you start. I mean, you're used to everything going through you, but then it's like that. I always joke. I have friends that are doctors and, CPAs. And I'm like, dude, you're working 60, 70 hours a week because you can't delegate. That's why, if you could just, figure out better systems.
So I wake up this morning and I look at my schedule and I'm tempted because I track everything on all my businesses on one sheet. And every Monday I go through on all my sheets and I have either a phone call, a message, an email or something to everybody that's in charge of these businesses.
Yeah. And
I get done with these meetings today and I'm like, damn, I have 4 hours. I don't know what I'm going to do.
That's good.
It's great.
Yeah.
It is a great thing. But do you remember the time?
It's not good for him. He gets real itchy. He'll start a business. He'll just start something
so
new.
I had to think about this. Okay. This is why I was listening to your podcast this morning. I listen to yours all the time. And I'm sitting there going, okay, I got 4 hours. I can either my job, same thing with you, is that the face of your company, your job is to direct traffic to all your companies, right? You're the visionary, you're the face. So how can you get out there more? One thing that you do better than anybody I know, truly better than anybody. I don't know if anybody's giving you this compliment. You know everybody. Like anybody that makes money in Phoenix, you know them. Yeah. And they're a personal friend of yours. Yeah. The guy that created California Closets is one of my good friends, and I took over his board position at Yeah. You when I hung out with you for those couple of hours at your office, you rattled off names that I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So you spend a lot more of your time networking and spending time with other visionaries and collaborating is what it sounds like.
Yeah, there's a couple organizations that have changed my direction, my life, my perspective, got me going from being all business to family and then business, let's say, and then one of them is EO and the other is YPO. So those two, I'm in YPO now.
What is YPO?
EO is Entrepreneurs Organization. YPO is Young Presidents Organization. Yeah, and they're just great. And they're it's a peer-to-peer network. So you're not supposed to be selling between each other, even though some people do that. And they're just people, trying to figure stuff out. So when I got into YPO, I was EO, you can kind of grow your business and kind of bootstrap it. And I would say it's a little bit easier, but YPO is different. Those are all the big names you talked about. Those are people running big businesses in town, and by the way, YPO chapters are all over the world. So, these are, everybody has the same stuff, hiring, firing, merging.
So you sit down with these people and they're telling you either a problem that they have that seems so obvious to you, of like, when you hear it from somebody else's mouth, you're like, why don't you just delegate more? And you go, oh shit, I have that same problem.
Yeah.
And so you're in the ambiance of somebody else. You're learning through osmosis. Plus, you're also helping coach other people that you've already problems that you've already overcome.
Yeah, there's a whole process to the way the meetings are run, but it's actually quite simple. You put everything onto a parking lot. So it's urgent, important, not urgent, important. You've seen the quadrants before, right? So everybody comes with whatever they got going on. It goes onto a quadrant. And then so you deal with
this visual?
Yes.
Okay.
It absolutely is. And then so you're dealing with an issue like I got an offer letter on my company. Okay, that's something that's important, right? And needs some kind of a response.
This is like a board of directors almost.
Pretty much, yeah. Like like I had my whole company sold to BlackRock. I was in an NDA with them like 3 years ago.
Not many people can say that.
No. Yeah. And so I brought obviously the term sheet and all that stuff, and I was under NDA at the time, but I had my YPO group, and so we. At the end of the day, they literally convinced me not to sell.
Do you
not
mind
good
telling us
enough
why?
deal.
Yeah. Well, so I'll tell you the best line ever. One of the guys in that group, who's an M&A guy, he goes,
mergers and acquisitions.
Yeah, he goes, Kenny, when you're sitting in that boardroom with Goldman and BlackRock and all those guys, I'm like, yeah. He's like, I just want you to remember one thing. I go, what's that? He goes, you're the dumbest one in the room. I go, really? He goes, 100%.
Yeah.
And he's like, they see something you don't see. And so it really, I was like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what was that? And
it's almost like the piece of real estate, the 192, or no, the first piece of multifamily you bought, 192 units?
Yeah, 182, yeah.
182. You saw something that the seller didn't see.
Correct, exactly.
And you turned around and made $40 million on it.
Yeah.
So basically the M&A guy challenged you and said, Kenny,
they see something you don't see. So it was right. Think about it. Think about how much value went up in 3 years. I was going on 4 now, but think about that. And I was like, yeah. And at the end of the day, he said, you've created the golden goose. You have so much cash flow each and every month, millions of dollars each month. And they want that. Plus, they want all the value add that's sitting in your assets. And this is one transaction that they've got.
They could come through with just one fell swoop and pick up 10,000 units in a heartbeat.
Well, one, their cost of debt's a lot lower than mine. And
because
two,
they'd be buying the LLC, not the assets. And so they're taking over the existing debts. They're not having to worry about having to restructure any debt. They're just buying it.
Correct. Right. Yeah. And it was over $1 billion, with the whole transaction.
Damn.
So I was a nice payday. But then again, a YPO guy, he's like, he sold his company for a lot in the billions. And he's like, you know what I do every day? I go, what's that? He goes, I manage financial planners. That's it.
Yep.
I hate it.
Yep.
Because I have to spread my money around to all these different people because you don't want it in one firm. He's like, all I do is manage wealth management guys. He's like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And I'm like, Jesus, I don't want to be in that position. I'd rather have it right in my assets.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So those are two big nuggets.
So basically, you hatched the goose that laid the golden egg. You nurtured it. You fed it. You built it all the way up. And now you're going to basically just sell the golden egg.
Yeah. And that's what Mark said. And I was like, you know what? You're right.
There's the value of masterminding right there.
Yeah.
Well, squat up.
100%. Yep. So anyway, so those are a couple organizations. Those are just a couple examples of keeping me on point. And also there are personal things that come up too, that happened. And
I want to tell a personal story, if you don't mind, about me. I'm at a private dinner with Ken probably a year ago, roughly. Do you remember that dinner with Pete Vargas and all them? It's a room with like Gary Brecka. You've got a bunch of high-level people in this room. And somebody curated this room, invited Kenny, invited me, and a handful of probably about 20 people. And I immediately was like, oh my gosh, the guy that I've been looking up to for like 5 years, this guy is the guy. I want to talk to him. So they order drinks, they order food, and they let us break for like 15 minutes. And I get up and immediately, like a magnet, go right over to him. I don't even care about one other person in the room. Mm-hmm. They're all impressive people, but he's the guy that I've looked up to for a long time. So I walk over to him, and within maybe 13 minutes, I left that dinner based on the advice he gave me. Mm-hmm. He gave me personal advice. I left the dinner before the food came based on personal advice he gave me. And it helped me tremendously. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's a bunch of things that I learned in YPO, and one of them was, when my kids were little, I took every minute off that they were off. So spring break, Friday, Monday, winter break, summer break, didn't matter. So literally my whole career, they would get out of school. We would leave the next day for Coeur d'Alene and stay up there all summer. And I didn't work while they were awake, I should say. Mm-hmm. So I'd get up and crank it, 5 to 10, let's say, or 6 to whatever. So I'd get a few hours in a day, but that's it. I'd turn it off. I was super present with them the whole time. That's why they were with me this weekend in Nashville. That's why they're going with me next weekend.
Your kids love you. Every time I bump into them, they just love you.
But it's, it's half the time or half the money, twice the time. That's it. That's the model. That's the model for kids.
Say that one more time.
Half the money, twice the time. Yeah.
So it means you're going to make half the money.
Well, you spend half the money on them. So what happens in parenting
Interesting.
is
you guys don't know shit. You guys don't have kids yet.
You
Come on.
You feel guilty. You work a lot. You go buy them shit, whatever. And then, you think that matters. It doesn't matter. So, it's, so that's what I mean by spend half the money and spend twice the time. So the reason why I was, my kids and I are close is because, I built that relationship, built that trust because I was there all the time. Literally when they were awake, I was there.
I saw an interview the other day from the guy who sold his business to Kinko's for $1 billion. And somebody said, what was the thing that made you happy? And he said, the fact that my children want to come back home to hang out with me.
Yeah.
He says, forget about all my money, forget about everything else. You are not successful unless your kids want to hang out with you.
That's 1,000% true. Yeah. You'd be surprised. It's, it gets lonely after a while. I mean, at some point you make a lot of money and that's all good. But then, like literally, what else do I need? I mean that. Like, what else?
Mm-hmm. You don't personally need any more anything financially, but as an individual, I'm curious at your level, right? You're a driven guy. You guys have your Limitless event coming up, by the way. We should talk about that for a second. How can people go to that?
Oh my God. I interviewed Chris Voss this morning.
I know. I heard you were on the phone with him for an hour.
He's best. That guy.
He's
I was like,
epic.
All he did was ask questions, of course, right? Because I read his book 10 times, never split the difference. But yeah. So Dennis Prager, Chris Voss, Kiyosaki, obviously Joseph Wang from the Fed. We got a bunch of really, really smart people. Mark Moss, George Gammon.
It sold out last year.
Yeah.
I spoke, and then I was on 2 panels last year. And I'm sitting there going, the quality of the people at this seminar is the highest quality I've ever seen.
Yeah. And they're hand selected. Literally, they're people, our goal, we don't want selling from the stage, just pure education. Not that people don't do deals there, they do, but I think we're heading into troubled times. Chris said it perfectly this morning. He's like, what should I talk about? We were going over everything that I see, and he was going over everything he sees, and he said, how to negotiate during troubled times. I'm like, that's perfect. That's exactly what people are trying to figure out right now, whatever it is. So, yeah, that's coming up the 15th, 16th, limitlessexpo.com.
It was, I gave you guys this compliment. I walked around. This is how good the event was. Your sponsor section, like the people that had sponsored your events, like the booths and all that stuff, even your sponsors are the highest quality people I've ever met. Like I personally went around and met everybody. I'm like, holy crap.
That's because I was super anal about that too. We made sure, I knew like all the questions that I get, you guys all have, we all have. Where do we want to put our money? Gold, silver. I had a crypto guy there last year. Probably won't be there this year. But you want to, like, these are the same people, and I want to make sure that they're people. I said, listen, no selling. Like, you need to educate these people as to, the whole picture. And so we have these conversations with these sponsors and these people to make sure that they're educating. Because I don't have a problem if you're buying oil and gas. I don't have a problem if you're buying gold. I don't have a problem if you're buying crypto. But tell the truth. Like what are the things that can go wrong? And so that's kind of where we focus.
So you've got the event coming up this next month. Where can people go to get a ticket?
Yeah, limitlessexpo.com is the best place, and we got 45 speakers this year.
Phenomenal. Why do it?
What's that?
Why do the Limitless Expo?
Yeah. Well,
what do you get out of it?
Yeah. Well, I think the what we've tried to do is we've tried to bring everyone into one room that's actually doing stuff. Nobody's selling stuff. Like they're actually in the game. You know what I mean? So like when you guys show up, like you're going to learn subject to, and you're going to learn a whole bunch of other things, so we just make sure that those people are all there.
Yeah.
And so I think you got to be careful who your teachers are.
Yep.
Because people assume that when they go to a seminar, somebody standing on the stage knows what they need to learn.
Correct.
And so you put a wrong teacher on a stage, and I've seen this. You've probably seen this a bunch of times. You're like, man. And you'll see people behind the green screen that are not really doing the deals, and then they get put up on stage and they're selling some product, and you're like, man, you just took these lambs to slaughter.
I'll tell you the funniest thing that ever happened. This is a true story. I was with Kiyosaki, and we were somewhere, I can't remember where, and Trump came to speak. And, this is back during the Learning Annex days, and I would go around at, New York and LA and all that, and that's where I met Donald multiple times, and and sometimes we're on stage together, sometimes not. But one time they had it really buttoned down where these speakers were back to back, and Trump went over. Of course, this is way before he ran for president, so he's just dropping great wisdom, right? Well, the guy behind him was freaking out because his speech was 45 minutes. Right. And so it's the best. So Trump goes over. This guy's now got 30 minutes, let's say. And I watch, he just melted. He melted down because he didn't know what to do. And I'm like, are you serious? Like,
just pivot.
Yeah, well, he couldn't because to your point, like his pitch was 45 minutes.
It was a performance.
He had it down.
It was a performance.
It was a performance.
It was a performance.
Yeah.
Whereas a guy like you, you're like, what are we talking about? Wherever this goes.
I don't really care.
I really don't care.
I can fill 30 minutes.
I know. And the other guy was a wealth manager selling big products for one of these wealth management companies. And my buddy goes up to me. He's like, I want to go meet with that guy. Who is he? Where'd he go? He's like, well, don't tell anybody, but he's an actor. Like, oh my God. Like, really? He's an actor and a salesperson just selling products, trying to get people to go back to the room. I hate that stuff.
Well, we have 10,000 of them now on YouTube.
I know. It drives me nuts.
Yeah. For real.
So that's, I guess, to your point that these are vetted, these people, you were there. These are not speakers, by the way, like Neil Balter, my buddy from California Closets. I'm going to sit down with him on a fireside. Yeah. And they're all freaking out because they're not speakers. These are hardcore entrepreneurs. I had the guy from LifeLock that started LifeLock last year, company. Todd. Yeah, I had him, and he's like, Kenny, and I'm like, dude, don't worry. Like, we're just going to sit down and have a conversation like this. And he's like, okay. And that's it. And so they have a lot to say, as you know, but as long as you don't stick them behind a podium, have them walk around and do PowerPoints and try to like impress them, they're just not speakers.
Right.
So these are real people though, that are doing real deals and own real businesses. And so that's who we try to find.
Yeah, Tarl, your partner in the event, texted me, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago, and he goes, hey, we had good feedback. We want you to come back and speak. And I'm like, I'm 100% in.
Yeah.
It's my favorite event. And then a week later, they sent me the dates, and I was like, I'm already committed. I'm speaking somewhere else. So I unfortunately won't be able to go.
Yeah, that's what I heard. It's fine. Next year after.
Will you let me come back?
Oh, yeah. 100%.
He's like, you're fired.
No, listen, guys, as you know, like we want people that are doing stuff. You're doing stuff.
Yeah.
And, and I just think that's the only people I should be listening to.
Okay. Last question. Yeah. We're a couple minutes late. This has turned into just Pace and Brent absorbing.
Sorry. I know people.
Has this been good? Guys, like this is what's so powerful about being around somebody that's doing something that you ultimately want to do is that you learn by osmosis. And it's the same thing when I first met Brent and I was like, I want to do more deals. Mm-hmm. And I got around Brent and I asked the question and just having the vibration, the energy of the room, watching him act a certain way gave me permission to act a certain way. And what I learned is the same thing you learned when I was growing up. I learned how to be a contractor and touch everything with my damn hands. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I watched guys like you delegating that I go, oh shit, that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be delegating.
Right.
Guys running an entire business with 9,000 units in 90 minutes.
90 minutes.
Yep.
And then the rest of the time you're doing content with your wife on
Monday. Yeah, we do that on Monday. We jam all that in a few hours on Mondays. And that's been really, really, really fun. And, today we had a call like with the FHA, on some of our other stuff. So there's stuff and we're looking at some other assets and, so some of that.
So you'll jump in a little bit.
But but I don't want scheduled meetings.
I hate scheduled meetings.
You have to have time. You have to have time to think, to manage, and just you have to have that freedom.
What are you doing Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of this week?
I have no idea.
Can I borrow the jet?
Of course. Yeah, it's here.
Okay, so last question. At your level, what is the next level? What's the next thing you're trying to accomplish?
Legacy.
Legacy,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So bringing on, we're targeting, people that are, they're 20 years into their career. They're bumping up somewhere, where they're high paid, but they're, just high paid. They're high paid W-2s, high performers. And I'm trying to go out and find those folks and cut them in. And build a team that way, so it just takes it to the next level, and they get a piece of everything moving forward, and so it's a win-win.
Is there a point where you just go, I'm done working?
Well, yeah. I mean, I really
you're
am.
almost there.
I've been that way a long time, but yeah. So, but I like it. I mean, I'm doing what I want.
This is the point. Is I get a lot of people come to us. Same thing with Brent. We're not at your level, but they ask us, why are you still working?
Yeah.
Because the mindset that they have is, well, you're making, millions of dollars a year. Why would you continue to work? And I'm like, because I freaking am obsessed with what I do. I love it.
Yeah, it's fun to start stuff, do stuff,
and hang out with your buddies that you're doing jobs and deals with.
Yeah, it really is. It's calculated, but it's calculated risk, I think, in a lot of ways. But I don't know. I have friends. I got like a couple mentors that are 70, 80 years old. And I'll tell you one story. This is a great one. This guy's 90, and he calls me up.
Is he here local?
Yeah. Well, he is now. He lives in the Midwest. He calls me up. He's like, Kenny. He's like, I'm like, how you doing, Dwayne? He's like, good. He goes, hey, I got a few $1,000,000. I just come out of a 1031. You got any deals? And I just started laughing, man. I'm like, this is the best. Yeah. And, I talked to his sons, and they're like, yeah, man. Like, it just kept him sharp. It just keeps him sharp, and he's not going to the office every day. He's just doing a little bit here and there, but it's just keeping him, and
involved,
engaged.
He's
pumped, yeah. And so I was on the phone with him talking about 1031 strategies, and what he should be looking at. But he probably made several more phone calls after me too, and and so I think that's probably what I'll always be. I'll be that
deal junkie,
wheeling and dealing.
Yeah.
Guys, give it up for Ken McElroy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Nice to meet you.
Legend in the game. Have a lot of people saying, I want to be Ken when I grow up. This has been unbelievable. Tons of great comments today. So thank you guys so much. We have thousands of comments from today. Had about 1,500 people tune in and a good 500 people
thank
staying
you guys.
live.
This has been great, man.
Thank you.
Always great seeing you guys.
Kenny, you're amazing.
Love
Thank
you
you.
guys.
Appreciate you. You're the best.
Keep pumping out great content.
We will see you guys next week on Wholesale Hotline.
Love you guys. See ya.
Or just say squat up.
So squat up and enjoy the show.
Yeah.
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
So squat up and enjoy the show.
What are you doing?
I didn't say nothing.
Why?
I don't know.
Okay.
So squat up and enjoy the show.
Cool. I think we should use the one where Jamil doesn't say anything.